So one day I went to Walmart and got a bunch of cardboard to make one of those cardboard tunnel slides on my stairs like I've seen before, and tape, and then left, went home and started building it. I taped the first box down at the top and was adding glow sticks all along on the way down. I then taped the second box to the top one and repeated this process for a long time until eventually I was done. The slide was looking pretty cool. I threw some pillows down to break my fall and went down it. And the first one was kind of anticlimactic, but my brother went down pretty fast and almost hurt himself. And on his next go, he basically destroyed the slide. So I had to remove this piece and put down a new flooring that made it actually faster. Here's a POV of me sliding down. And here's my final go. So one day someone commented telling me to microwave my aluminum foil ball, but first I'm going to do some other comments, including making it smoother and making this basket. This was actually my idea. And, oh look, I made it, haha. And then I sanded it down to make it smoother, which didn't really work, but it gave me this little ball. And then it was time to put it in the microwave. Don't try this at home. I took the plate out, put it in, turned it on for 60 seconds, and waited. So one day it was snowing outside and I decided I wanted to build a giant snowman and destroy it with my giant 100-pound rubber band ball. So I started with a snowball and it got bigger and bigger till eventually we had our base. We cleaned it up a little bit and then I rolled around another snowball until I had the midsection. Put it on, smoothed it out, and then put on the head. We smoothed out the rest and gave it arms and a chain and turned him into Drippy Steve the Snowman. Hey, icy. Then I filled up my super powerful water gun with hot tub water and blew a hole in his face. And then supercharged his nose off. And after that, I got out the giant rubber band ball, picked it up, and threw it at his head. And he was pretty wrecked. Here's me pretending I'm a snowman, and then the rubber band ball going past and being on him and throwing it at his back. But none of it worked, so I threw this thing at him and then jumped into him. But he was too solid. Let me know what else I should try. So after failing to destroy this snowman with my water gun and giant rubber band ball, someone commented to fill the super powerful water gun up with boiling water and then shoot it. But first I had to make another head because the other one was broken. I made it, put it on, and he was ready. I let some water boil, put the gun in, and it reacted like this. So don't try this at home because it almost burnt me. So I just filled it up with hot tub water and then went out and shot it a bunch of times. Until eventually the snowman looked like this. But that wasn't enough, so I got a bow and arrow out and shot it with a few arrows and then beat its head in. But the body is still rock solid. Let me know what else I should try. So one day I got this giant hamster ball and the next day it was raining, so I decided to get in it in this air-up dinosaur suit. But first I got it in normally just to test out the rain with more mobility. I ran through this puddle twice and then rolled around a little bit, ran a little bit, and rolled a little bit more. And then got in the dinosaur suit and got in. And it was a struggle because I couldn't really see where I was going, so I only moved around a little bit and then got out and almost hit my head. But I got out and then ran off and jumped in the air. Let me know what else I should try. So one day I took my microwave to the streets to microwave grapes like I saw in a YouTube video, and it's supposed to make plasma. Don't try this at home, but I'm going to try it. You put a glass cup over and wait, and it did nothing at first, so I tried again with some more time, and it still did nothing. And after some more time didn't do much, I decided to cut it like I saw in another YouTube video, and then put it in. And that didn't really do much but make it smoke a little bit more, so I did it again without the glass, and it did that, and then again with more time, it did that. And it only ever left a stain. Let me know how I should get sparks. So I'm now to part 37 of this giant rubber band ball. And it's getting pretty giant, but everyone still wants it to be bigger. So I ordered more rubber bands, dumped them into a pile, and started placing. And then this happened because it's getting hard to place them. But I kept on going, finishing the pile, and then I took a break and went outside to play with the ball in the snow. And there wasn't much snow, but I made as big a snowball as I could, set it on the rubber band ball, and then crushed it. And then I came back to place another pile. I dumped it out, and then I placed it a little bit differently this time. I just threw all the bands on the ball. Bam. Magic. And the ball actually broke the scale, and the scale won't read anymore, so I don't know how much it weighs. But I took it out of the coal sack, and it's just pretty heavy. So, like if you want me to keep on going. So one day someone commented for me to drop my rubber band ball on a microwave, so I'm going to do that. I'm also going to crush this piece of furniture along with a few other things with this giant 100-pound rubber band ball. So I got in the ladder and threw it, and it did that. I then picked it up and plugged it in to test it would still turn on, and it did, but the doors broke. Next, I got this jug of water I just filled up with the hose, and it did that. Then this bouncy ball that was way louder in person. And last but not least was this piece of furniture I found in my attic, and it did that. Let me know what else I should crush with my rubber band ball. So after destroying our microwave with my 100-pound rubber band ball, someone left a comment saying to do a phone. But first, I'm going to do this broken TV my neighbor gave me. I put the ball on there and threw it. And it didn't do very much damage, so I just threw it again. And it mainly just bounces on it, so I stepped on it a bunch and then got out a giant snowball that was left over. And that was pretty cool and left me with a snowball. And then I got out the phone. I set it down, then threw the ball on it, but it missed, so I threw it again. And it cracked it. Look at it. I'm just kidding, this is a fake phone. It's actually smashed now. So one day I decided to prank my brother Jack by filling his entire truck up with ball pit balls. And my brother likes his truck a lot, so I don't know how he'll react. And luckily I had already had these ball pit balls from previous videos, you know. And I just began dumping them in the truck and then shut the windows down to make sure they didn't spill out while I put them in. And eventually the truck was filled up, so I went to get him and get his reaction. I did something to your truck. Oh, yeah? Go take a look in the window. Why are your windows? And at first he just paused in silence looking at the truck. And then he opened the door. What do you think? Yo! long it's gonna take to clean up? How am I gonna find my school supply? In the sea crevice. Then he jumped in it, and then I jumped in it and threw a bunch of balls around. Later, bruh. And he took off. So one day someone commented telling me to put my giant hamster ball in the water, so I'm going to do that. But I pushed it through this fence and walked it out to the pond. But the fence had knocked a hole in it, so we had to repair it, and then I got in and got in the water. And I couldn't really move very well, and my biggest fear was going through the hole. I slipped a lot and also just laid down. And then I slipped some more and couldn't move for a while until I accidentally made my way over these branches. And I was trying to run the other way in fear of moving into them, but I couldn't. And eventually I did just float into shore and then got grabbed and got out. Like if I should jump off this bridge with it. So one day someone commented to run over my brother with this giant hamster ball, but I'm actually going to let him run me over. First I messed around in it, then got out and jumped on it. And I was trying to jump over it, but I just fell backwards and broke this bush. And then I laid down for my brother to run me over. He ran me over and it wasn't that bad, so I rolled over and let him run me over again. And again. And then I told him to do it a lot faster, and he did. And then I told him to go even faster, and this is from my point of view. It was pretty cool to watch. Ooh. And then I got in a different position to see if he could make it over me like that, and eventually he did. And here's my angle. Ooh. And then I got out the giant rubber band ball and put it in the ball because someone else commented to do that. And it weighed over 100 pounds and started rolling out and then just fell out. Comment what else I should try with the giant hamster ball. So this is rubber band ball part 38, and this ball is getting giant, and I'm going to keep going. Got a bunch more bands, you know, and I tested out these new bands that didn't end up working. So I just ended up going back to these colored rubber bands, and the camera cut out, and I lost all that footage of me putting on. So here's me putting on the last one, and then taking it downstairs. And the ball now weighs 109 pounds. I took it outside, and it ran into a bush. And then I set it on top of this swing and started swinging it. And it was pretty cool, and I tried to knock it off, but couldn't. The most it did was that. And then I just got on it and kicked it off. And it's so heavy I can barely pick it up anymore. Let me know if you want me to keep going. So one day I decided to go dumpster diving behind a phone store to see what I could find, and it was empty. So I drove out to a different phone store, and it was locked. So I went out to Academy's dumpster, and it looked promising, but someone was already there, so we left. And ended up going out to this different sports and outdoor stores, and I looked through it and didn't find anything for a while until eventually I found a watch. A watch? And it didn't work, but it was still cool. And then I got in, kept looking, and went out to the side and found this speaker. And I don't know if it works. So I'm to part 39 of this giant rubber band ball, and I can't find any other type of rubber bands except these ones to place on it. So let me know if you have any other options, but for now, I'm going to keep on placing these. And I placed the entire pile of color rubber bands until I was all out. And then I took the ball outside to mess around with it, and it was snowing, so I just laid on the ball and caught the snow. And I can't even lift it over my head anymore because it weighs like 110 pounds. And then here's me breaking a basketball goal with it. And here it is next to a basketball, and then me standing on it, and let me know if I should keep on doing this. So one day I saw a TikTok where they tested flex tape, and I wanted to test it out for myself. So I got a jug of water, filled it up. I cut a square of flex tape out and then stabbed this thing, which took quite a while, but eventually I got a hole in it, and then I slapped the flex tape on. And it worked pretty well. There was a small leak, but a little bit of rubbing and you got it out. And next I decided to test a 50-pound weight. I put the flex tape on and it couldn't get it, so I decided to move to 45 pounds, and it got it up and held there for quite a while. This is some strong stuff. So one day I went out to the gas station to make some random gas station drink because I saw someone else on TikTok do it. I got Mountain Dew and then got this random candy, some Lifesavers and some Crawlies and then a Bang. And it was all ready to be thrown together. I put the Lifesavers in, then the Crawlies and then this stuff, and then added the Bang and started stirring. And I took a drink, and I couldn't quite tell what I thought. And it was pretty much sweet Bang, but I kept on drinking it and the flavor started to come out. And then I tried one of the pieces of candy in it, and that was really gross. But I came back a few hours later to try the drink, and it was even better. And then 24 hours later, it got all big and looked like this. So one day it was snowing, and I decided to take my giant hamster ball and get in it. I wanted to see what it was like in the snow and how high I could jump in it from. I got in and rolled around a little bit, you know, ran. Saw a cool tree, did a few more flips, and then pushed it onto the deck. And from there, I got in and ramped it off. And after that, I ran a little bit more and then got out to see if I could jump in it from different heights. And I missed that one, got that one. And then I positioned the ball even higher and missed, fell backwards, and missed again. So I ran back even further, and I still came kind of short. But on this last run, I got it. Let me know what else I should try. So I'm now to part 40 of my giant rubber band ball, and I wanted to walk you guys through the entire process. I take it upstairs and into this room where I sit down and place rubber bands. I'm actually running out of the type of rubber bands I can place because these ones are just too tiny and break on me. And these ones are just getting old and I have to untangle them every single time. But no worries, I found this random custom rubber band site on the internet and called them up. Yo, I need your 15-inch rubber bands. I'm gonna place an order for like 25 pounds. And just like that, $200 worth of rubber bands was on the way. But for now, I'm gonna place these ones. I put them in a pile and then untied them all and got to placing them. And I placed the entire pile of colored rubber bands until I was all out. And after that, I took it downstairs, which was a struggle, but I got it. And I weighed the ball in at 113 pounds. I then took it to the street to try to pick it up. And I can get it up to here, but it's too heavy to get over my head. So I just laid on it, like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I decided to build one of those saran wrap tree houses that I keep seeing on TikTok. And I was going to build it in this half put together tree house. And I started by making the floor. And after the floor, I was going to do the roof. They would also double as a hammock. I wrapped the saran wrap around a bunch of times. And it kind of looked like a spider web. And then I got back up there and went around a bunch more to make sure it was strong enough. I then wrapped it around all the corners and started weaving it all the way in. And this first section was pretty strong, so I kept on going, making it even stronger and then branching out. And I kept on going and making a super strong middle section until eventually it looked like this. Part 2 of my saran wrap treehouse. So I was almost done, and I just kept on going for quite a while, non-stop. And I was leaving the middle undone so I could get on it, but I just had this tiny section to do, and I finished. And then I was ready to go inside the epic treehouse and test it out. I got on, and at first I thought the plastic was going to break, but when I spread myself out, I was chilling. And it was a pretty cool treehouse. Here it is from above, and it's a pretty sturdy thing. And when it's raining, you can just go under it like this. It even holds water. Look. And then it started to thunder. The full video is on my YouTube, by the way, Dylan Ayres. So one day I got a comment saying I should drop my 110-pound rubber band ball in my saran wrap fort. But it's really heavy, so I got a tarp, tied it up with paracord, and then tried to lift it with a pulley system. And we ended up having to use a truck to get it up because it's too heavy. But we put it on the wrong branch and couldn't get it up from there, so we put it on a different one. Still couldn't get it up from there. But on the third time we got it, and I pulled it onto the fort and cut it open, and it was on there. It made it sag a lot, but I moved it over to here and then threw it off. What else should I try? So I'm now at a rubber band ball part 41, and my 25 pounds of rubber bands got here, so I took it upstairs along with my giant rubber band ball. I took it all to the room where I placed the bands, and then I threw that in a package and opened it up. And each bag weighed 5 pounds. I dumped them all out, and the bands were pretty good. So I dumped out 10 pounds of bands and got to placing. And it was a lot, so I had my brother help me with this one. And we were going for so long, my phone even cut out because it ran out of storage. But we finished eventually and then took it downstairs. I got it all the way down and then weighed it in at 123 pounds. I took it outside and just look at it next to a wheel and next to my head. And here's my best effort at trying to pick it up. I can barely do it anymore. Let me know what else I should do with this ball. So one day, after destroying a bunch of stuff with my homemade rubber band ball wrecking ball, I got a microwave and decided to go again. And it weighs like 123 pounds now, so it should do more damage. Here it goes. Yeah, I didn't think it was enough damage, so I set it back up and went again. And it did get nailed, but I wanted to hit it one more time. And then I put down this kickball, thinking it would go super far, but it didn't. So then I got out this broken TV that I failed to smash before. And it did that, and completely destroyed the microwave that was holding it up. I walked up to it, and then my brother pulled the door off. Let me know what else we should smash. So one day, after filling my storm shelter entirely up with ball pit balls, we cleaned it up because someone commented to turn it into a cool fort. So I went to Walmart and got a beanbag, some MRE ice cream and egg, and a thing of water to make it kind of survivally, and a bin and a desk. And then I took it all to the storm shelter and started putting it together. Put the beanbag in, then the desk, which made me laugh for some reason, and then I hung up these lights. Pretty cool. Next, I got the MREs in a bin, set it on the desk, and then filled the water jug up. And the fort was pretty much done to me. Let me know what else you think I should add. Oh, and I also tried one of the MRE ice cream sandwiches. It was pretty good. So one day, I put my 123-pound rubber band ball back on the zip line to destroy a cabbage, an Xbox, and a giant brick wall. Starting with the Xbox, I pulled back and launched. And it hit it pretty hard, but not hard enough, so I put it back on and hit it again. Here's the slow-mo. There goes my old Minecraft worlds. I put it back up for one final hit, and it got totally toasted. And now it was time for the cabbage. I set it down, and it didn't really do anything, so I threw it at a tree. Then I got out the Lego brick wall and built it up. I made it into like a giant rainbow wall, then went back and threw the band ball at it. Yeah, it was pretty cool. The full video where we smash other stuff is on my YouTube, Dylan Ayres. So one day I decided to take my giant 123-pound rubber band ball to the gym. And my friend tried overhead pressing it to start out. And he got it. So then I tried, and I just couldn't do it. And then we saw a scale and decided to weigh it, and it weighed 123. Then I tried benching it and about crushed myself. Then we convinced this other dude in there to try to overhead press it, and he also got it. Then my other friend tried and kind of got it. Then my friend who's 6'7" tried, put it on his knee first, and then also kind of got it. Then I tried again and didn't quite get it, but did a little bit better. Then my friend tried benching it and about crushed himself too, and then got one rep with some stability. And then we had the idea to put it on a treadmill. We put it on and it started rolling backwards. And we got it to just roll on there by itself, and it went all the way to the back and then came off. Then my friend golfed with it. Let me know what else I should do with this giant rubber band ball. So one day, after freezing a giant water balloon and it being hollow, people wanted me to do it bigger and better. And it was going to get colder, so I'm gonna. I let it fill up for even longer this time. And I was also going to let it sit for even longer. I zip-tied it shut, and then let it sit and came back the next day to check it out. And I could stand on it. It was pretty frozen. We gave it another day, and then came back out again. And the balloon had popped somehow, but the ice was still rock solid, and I could stand on it, kind of. I ripped the balloon off, then pushed it over, and it did that. And I threw the ice, and it was really, really strong. It's pretty thick ice. One day I decided to take 2 gold chains, one fake, one kind of real, flex tape, a giant water balloon, and a giant rubber band ball back to the pawn shop.
Got doubled up in the chains.
Yeah.
I brought the rubber band ball in again. I just wanted you to see how big it is. I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on a price.
Big. Wow.
And I started off with this.
With this giant water balloon. This is pretty special. It can hold a lot of water, and it's really big.
I asked him what he thought he could give me, and he said,
filled it up?
Yeah.
he said he'd do 5, but I thought that was way too low, so then I got out.
Genuine flex tape from Phil Swift himself.
Work good?
Yeah.
Is that flex tape strong enough to lift that ball?
And I didn't know, so we decided to test it. We put it on the ball, he picked it up, and it didn't work. So then I got out the 2 chains.
Tell me what you think each one of them's worth.
He looked at him and said,
This one I think you stole off your curtains.
and then he went and did an acid test on the other one and said it basically it was just gold plated, which is what I thought anyway, so I just kept it. And then I left. Full vid will be on my YouTube. So one day I wanted to freeze a balloon out in the cold and put food coloring in it like I've seen before on TikTok because it looks really cool. So I put the balloon out there and let it sit, and then I tried to ripstick, but it wasn't really working. So I threw it and then tried to make a snowball, but it was just powder. And I came back the next day and checked on my balloon and tried to do that cool knife cut thing, and it just cut like this. And then all the water started draining out, so I stabbed it quickly, and the food coloring didn't really go in it. But I broke it. And then it disappeared in the snow, and then I tried to make a snow angel. So one day I ordered my own bubble solution to make bubbles and test if that TikTok I saw where the bubbles freeze in the freezing cold really worked. I made the bubbles as big as possible and I tracked the first one outside and it went off for a little bit and then we lost it. So then I just caught this next one and let it freeze on the stick. And it did, and then fell off. It was pretty cool. And so I blew another one and caught it, and then it popped. So I blew another one, caught that one, and then time-lapsed it to freezing. Look at it. And then it fell off. Here's it in the slow-mo. And then I did that hot water thing just for fun. So one day, my friend and I went out to this giant snow pile in the middle of a parking lot to build a giant igloo. We got to digging for a long time. He would dig out the hole and I would scrape it out with the big shovel like this. We repeated this process for quite some time until eventually it looked like this. We were starting to make our way in and it was starting to look like an igloo. And our next goal was trying to make it taller so we could easily dig. And after a lot more time, we got it looking like this, but we still had more to go. It had been over an hour and we were just throwing snow everywhere. Then we saw this truck drifting in the parking lot, and here's our progress so far. We accidentally put a hole in the roof. Here it is. But it's a pretty big igloo that you can even stand up in. But the sun was coming down, so we had to leave, like if we should keep going. So everyone wanted us to make the snow pile in the parking lot that we made into an igloo even bigger. So we went back the next day with our shovel to do just that, digging out the hole and scraping all the snow out. And while we were digging, we found whatever this is. And keep in mind, I do not recommend you try this at home or anywhere. I'm a trained pro, yo. Anyway, we kept on digging more and more snow out, which was taking a very, very long time. But it was kind of satisfying. And after quite some time, here was our progress. We still had a lot of snow to clear out and we needed to make it more even. We shoveled out all that snow. And then my friend made a seat, and it was pretty cool. I sat on it. The igloo was starting to come together. We shoveled out some more snow until it was completely finished. And here's the inside. I laid down, poked the ceiling, and then started punching the roof in to destroy it. And then I completely destroyed the whole fort so no one would get hurt in it. And then did a front flip. And here's the aftermath. So one day I rolled my rubber band ball back upstairs because I'm now at part, 42. It weighs 123 pounds, and I dumped out 3 more bags, which is 15-ish pounds or something like that. And me and my brother got to placing them. And this was the most amount of bands I've ever placed, so we took a break and took it out to the snow. And I made a snowball, then threw it at it, and then rolled it around in the snow, rolled it over this hill, and then picked it up and dropped it. Then the next day I got back to placing, which was a huge pile that took me a long time to place, but I got it. And the ball was a bit deformed afterwards, but it's okay. It weighs 139 pounds now, and just look at it next to my head, if you want me to keep on going. So one day I got in my giant hamster ball to take it out in the snow and see how it did. And it made a little path. And then I got out to try to jump in it again and failed. So I then ran to this hill and tried to go over it, but failed on that too. So I pushed it over and put more air into it so I could do it better. And I tried again and failed. And then this time I just failed again. But then I went around and fell out in the snow like this. And then I got out and made a snowball. So one day I took my giant 140-pound rubber band ball to this hill to roll it down. And there's also a little jump at the bottom made of snow. I rolled it down and it just kept on going and going and then hit the jump. And here's a slow-mo replay. Wow. And then it zoomed off into the parking lot and just kept on going. It was going pretty fast, so I ran after it. And it went all the way into a soccer field. So I climbed over and looked at the path it made. And it went all the way from there. So one day after filling my storm shelter up with ball pit balls, people kept commenting for me to fill it completely up. So I bought a bunch more ball pit balls and started filling it up with an insane amount. I dumped every single bag in until it looked like this and left a mess of boxes. I then got a run for it and got scared and then went back and jumped in. It was pretty cool and cushioned my fall. And it's just completely full inside and I can bury myself in it. I threw them all in the air and then I went down under all the balls to check it out. And then popped back up. And then I chilled in it with the door shut, and it was kind of cool. So let me know what else I should try or do with my storm shelter. So one day my brother and his friend had an idea to take all the ball pit balls from my storm shelter and put them all in our friend Joe's office, who's an insurance agent. So we transported them all to the office and we had to put them all in here. But first I spun around in the chair a little bit and then got to pouring, and we poured out all the ball pit balls and it was completely covered. I set the GoPro up. We shut the lights off and left, and he was supposed to come back in the morning, but he actually ended up coming in at midnight. And here was his reaction.
What the hell is this? No way. You guys got one this time. Next time, it's not gonna happen.
He then messaged me, so I zoomed over there to get his reaction.
What were you doing back here?
What do you mean? I come back all the time.
Here it is, completely covered.
Dylan, you're still recording me?
So one day, after people kept commenting for me to spend 24 hours in the storm shelter, I decided to sleep in it. I shoved an air mattress down there, had my MREs, and I was ready to sleep in it. I then left and came back later that night to actually sleep in it, because I wasn't going to stay in there the whole time. I set up my lantern, turned on these lights, and I was ready to go. And it was pretty cool. I laid down and tried to go to sleep, and then my brother came out to check on me like 2 hours later. We talked for a bit, he told me the time, and then he left, and I ate my MREs. And I didn't put water in the eggs for they were bad, but the ice cream sandwich was still good. And then I went to sleep. And here I was the next morning, and it wasn't that bad of sleep. So one day I put my 150-pound rubber band ball back on the zip line to crush this car. And it was just a parts car my dad had laying around, so it wasn't a big deal. Pulled it back and threw it at it. And here's the slow-mo caving in that door. Then we saw a cat, and then I threw it at it again. And missed because we moved the truck, so we moved it again and threw it again. And this time it nailed it. It was a pretty big dent, but I still wanted more, so we did it again. And it knocked over the GoPro. Then we did one last go, and it was like the biggest dent yet. Let me know what else I should smash. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 43, and I got another box of rubber bands. I dumped them out, and these bands are even thicker than the last ones. I then dumped out another bag and got to placing them. And it was way easier to place these bands because they're twice as thick, and I got a lot more done with less time. I finished it up, and then I took it all the way downstairs to weigh it, and it weighed in at 149 pounds. I then took it out to the street to try to pick it up, and just look at it next to my head. It's huge, and I couldn't pick it up. Like if you want me to keep on going. So one day I put my rubber band ball back on the zip line to crush some more stuff. I went to Walmart, got this thing, this lamp, this clock, and this other clock, and this weird picture. I put the lamp together like this, and then I first started with the alarm clock and shut it right off. Then hit it with a baseball bat. And then I did the other clock like this. And after that, we set up the picture of whatever this thing is. And it got crushed. Then we put this thing and put the GoPro inside, and it made a cool looking slow-mo. But there wasn't enough damage, so we did it again. And again. Just look at it, getting smashed. And then I just hit it with a baseball bat. Then hit the lamp. Let me know what else I should smash. So one day someone commented for me to use hot glue sticks to try to get the dents out like 5-minute crafts. And I'm gonna try, because I put quite a lot of dents in this car with my rubber band ball. I went to Walmart, got some hot glue sticks, and then went home to fix these dents. The little lighter wasn't big enough, so I got out this blowtorch, stuck it on, and it pulled the metal, but didn't work. So I tried again, and still failed. Yeah. So I got out the longer stakes with more fire. Don't try this at home. And failed. And failed. And failed. And failed again. And then I tried to make a smaller dent with a bat, thinking the dents were too big, but that wasn't the case.
This is indeed cap.
So one day it was rubber band ball part 44, and first I had to get the ball out of the zip line. I got it out, and then I had to carry it all the way upstairs. I made it up, and then I took it to the room where I placed all my bands and got to place them. I placed the entire pile of like 15 pounds of rubber bands for quite a while until I was done, and I carried it all the way downstairs and weighed it in at like 164 pounds. Then I took it out to the street and just look at it. It's massive. Can't pick it up. I just can kick it. Like if you want me to keep on going. So one day I rented a one-man bucket lift to drop my 160-pound rubber band ball on top of stuff. And the first time I went up, I just dropped it on nothing to see how it would bounce. And here it was. Bounced pretty high. And remember, don't try this at home. Then we got out this car to smash. Here's the slow-mo. It put a pretty big dent in the roof. Then my dad went up and dropped it on it. And it put another pretty big dent in the roof. Then I moved onto the windshield and completely caved it in. Here's that slow-mo. And then I did it again. Here's an inside perspective. Yeah, the car was pretty crushed. And then I dropped Mentos and Coke. And this one was the best rocket I ever done in my life. Just look at it. Like if I should crush some more stuff. So after trying and failing to fix dents with hot glue, my comment section was filled with people telling me to let it cool down for even longer. So that's what I'm going to do. Here I am. Here's the time lapse of it cooling all the way until I didn't even have to touch it. And I then pulled it off and it didn't work. However, it is a pretty big dent. But there's other comments that said to try a plunger, so I tried that for a long time too, using fire and this plunger. This one might have worked if it was a smaller dent, so don't try this at home. So one day I was dropping my giant 160-pound rubber band ball off a bucket lift, and I had some cool stuff to drop on it, including an inflatable pool, an air mattress, and a giant water balloon. I started with this, and it did that. Here's the underwater slow-mo. It hit the water so hard it did this to the ball. Then I got out the air mattress and dropped it on it as well, and it didn't even pop. Look at it. But it did lose some bands when it dropped. So then I tried again with the pineapple on it, but I missed the pineapple. Then I did the water balloon, and it completely smashed it. Here's the slow-mo. And then it rolled off and went into the woods, and it just kept going down this very steep hill. Like if you want to see how I get it out. One day after dropping my giant 160-pound rubber band ball on a giant water balloon, it kept on rolling and rolling into the woods down a steep hill, and I had to go get it. So I made my way down into the woods and to the rubber band ball. And a thorn hit me when I tried to get it out, and then I just kept on pushing as much as I could. And it was really heavy at 160 pounds going up a pretty big hill, and I kept falling, but I made my way up and was really tired. But I still had this piece of furniture to smash, so I dropped it on it. Here's the slow-mo. And the pineapple was still alive. And then I got out this 1968 Camaro. Just kidding. I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 45, and I decided to do it outside today. And my rubber band ball also needed bands bad because it was looking kind of gross. And I placed bands out in the nice weather for quite a while. And just enjoying life, you know, placing rubber bands until I was done. And the ball now weighs more than me at 174. It's getting impossible to move, so I just lay on it. And yeah, like if I should keep going. So one day I got out my giant hamster ball to fill with ball pit balls, cause why not? Now this one has a hole in it, unlike the last one, but I'm gonna go in it anyway. I splashed around in it, kicked it, and then went off. And it was pretty crazy. I don't know how to describe it, but then some balls started to leak out, and even more. And after all the balls fell out, the wind picked up and started blowing them everywhere. But we got all those cleaned up, and then the next day filled it back up because I had an idea to tape up the hole and try it again. And it worked just fine. None of the balls were leaking. I ran through the puddle, then ran down the road, then ran back, ran through the puddle again, did another flip, and then came to the stop, and here's what the inside looks like, and let me know what else I should try. So one day I took my giant hamster ball out in the rain and filled it up with more water to slide around in. It was pretty cold, but it was also really slick and fun to slide around on. You could just run around and then start flying in circles. Here I am with a lot of momentum. Then I got cold, so I took a break and ran to a puddle and then went and jumped into my hot tub. After that, I got out, filled the ball back up with more water, and got back in and rolled around through the puddle, slipped around, ran down the road, and did a flip. And then did another one. It's now rubber band ball part 46, and now I just take the rubber band ball outside to work on it because it's too big to just keep inside. I had my pile of like 15 pounds of rubber bands and placed the whole pile for a long time until I was all out of bands and pretty tired. And now the ball weighs like 190 pounds almost. Here I am trying to jump across it and then fly, and I can't pick it up. And I'm going to have to order some even bigger bands, so like if you want me to keep going. So one day I ordered around 300 Rubik's Cubes to try to make one of those paintings that I keep seeing on TikTok. We made a frame, I tested it out, and it would do. It was alright. But then I had to think what I would make and how I would make it. And I decided I would make Shrek using a color grid type thing. So then I started placing cubes, and I underestimated how long it would take. It ended up taking like 4 hours. And I didn't have black, so I ended up using orange. So when I got done, I rearranged some cubes and also took some stickers off and made it look even better. And the further you go, the more it looks like Shrek. So one day I ordered this stuff called Great Stuff, which is basically expandable foam insulation. And my goal was to build a boat out of it. Not just any boat, a cardboard boat. Because a while back I had a series on TikTok where I tried to make cardboard boats float, and I was never very successful. But I used the best cardboard boat design I knew how to make, and then I was going to cover the entire outside in the Great Stuff. And hopefully it'll float. So I finished taping up the entire bottom, like this. And I already had a decent looking boat. Then we covered the entire bottom in the Great Stuff. And then later we covered the rest of the sides. And when I came back the next day, it was solid looking. And it was ready to be tested in the creek. I walked it down and then got in. And I started to float away. It was working flawlessly without any problem. So I just kept on rowing and having a good time. And then I about ran into a tree. And then I started heading out further. And it was the best boat I'd ever made. I just kept going. So it's now part 47 of the giant rubber band ball. I let it hit a ramp and then got out 25 pounds of bands, dumped them all out into a pile, and started placing them. And this was a lot of bands, the most I've ever placed. So I thought, how could I do this more efficiently? And I had the idea, pay someone. So I paid 2 friends that day to finish up this pile. And they got busy placing a lot of bands while I watched occasionally and then switched in and out even once. But then they kept going until eventually they had a much smaller pile left and just threw that pile on and it was done. And it now weighs 213 pounds. And I also decided to spray paint it because I saw a comment that told me to. Like if I should keep going. One day I decided to take my old giant paper airplane that didn't fly very well and recreate it with Great Stuff. So we coated the whole thing in this Great Stuff and outlined it until it was done. And then we let it dry and came back. And the paper wasn't very easy to peel off. It took quite a while, but eventually I got it and it looked like this. And then the next day it was ready to fly. Yeah, the first flight wasn't great, neither was the second, and not really the third. It was a little bit better. And after another fail, I cut some off and had this flight. It was pretty good. Then I threw it in a pool and jumped in. So one day I decided to fill this giant hamster ball up with water and swim in it. And this one's a lot bigger than my last one, so it'd be easier to fill with water. And I stopped it at this level so I could still be able to get in and swim in it. And then I jumped in, and it was pretty cool inside. I went underwater, and here I am. And then I came back up and put some goggles on and went back underwater again. And it was really cold, so I got out for a sec, got in the hot tub, and then got back in with a floaty. And then spun around. And then I decided to turn it into a giant batch of Kool-Aid. Full videos on my YouTube, Dylan Ayres. So one day I decided to make a life jacket out of Great Stuff and a pair of slides. Started with the life jacket, then outlined a pair of my slides and filled that out. I messed with the slides a little bit off camera to make them look like this, but the next day they were pretty good. I could walk in them, jump, even run. I also threw them in this tiny pool and they floated. And then I got out the life jacket and tried to run in the pool thinking I would run on water, but I didn't. And then I took the life jacket to the creek to test it. And when I fell in, the Great Stuff life jacket perfectly saved me. And it worked amazingly. Still do not attempt this. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 48. I dumped out 5 5-pound bags of rubber bands and got to placing. With some help because this was going to take a long time alone and this was a lot of bands. We kept placing and eventually had all the blue paint covered. And then eventually we got tired and took a break and then came back and finished off the entire pile until there was no bands left. Put it on the scale and it weighed in at almost 240 pounds. And it takes 2 people to pick it up. Like if I should keep on adding bands to it. So one day I filled this inflatable pool up with oobleck, liquid solid. When you hit it, it's a solid, and when you move slowly in it, it's a liquid. We spent a long time, like 2 hours, mixing it all up until we had it full. And it was working. I stepped in it slowly and sank and then ran on it, and I was alright. I also tried hitting it with an axe and almost got it stuck. Yeah, don't try this at home. This stuff is crazy though. I got in and got stuck, so I just buried myself in it and then put some on my head. Then I got out and tried to walk on my hands. And it worked for a little bit. Then I put some on my face, and when I slapped myself, it didn't even hurt. Then I laid down, got out quickly. My friend jumped across it, and then I hit it with a tennis racket in slow-mo. And then washed off. Comment any other ideas. So one day someone left a comment asking how bulletproof oobleck was, so I'm going to test it. And don't try this at home, I'm a pro. We started with a 22 and it did this. Look at the slow-mo. And it put a bunch of bullet holes in the box. Then we shot at it some more. Here's another slow-mo of it obliterating and then doing that. Then I poured it all into this other container to mix up and make more oobleck and blow it up. And here's that. Then I decided to blow up this other bag of cornstarch. And then we wanted to test if a tiny rubber band ball was bulletproof. And we shot it and it knocked a few bands off. Then a watermelon and it did this. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 49 and I have 25 pounds of rubber bands again. I dumped out the whole pile and when we began placing for a long time, as you can tell by the clouds going by in the background, this took forever. But eventually we got the entire pile done. And the ball is completely massive. I weighed it in at 263 pounds, and look at me sitting on it and then falling, and we can barely pick it up together. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I decided to make a giant paper airplane out of this board stuff. And my first design was just a basic airplane that had a problem of the nose going up. Except for this one flight that did really good for some reason. But I looked up on the internet and there were some ways to fix this with this type of design that kind of helped. But I ended up making a whole nother plane with a slightly different design, taking them to this cliffside. I first tested the planes off this little hill and they did pretty decent. And then I threw them off the cliff. And the first one just kind of went and then nosedived. And the second one went up, and then also nosedived. And I took them back up and tried again, and the first one was doing really good until it flew in the tree, and the second one was doing really good until the wind picked up a lot and made it nosedive. The planes eventually fell out of the tree, and I had a few more good flights, including this one. So I think I'm just going to wait for a less windy day and try again. So one day after making two giant airplanes that could kind of fly, but they didn't fly very good on the windy day, so I took them back out on a less windy day and tried again. And the first one was just a total fail. It fell off the cliff and into the water. So I tried to throw the second plane, and it did a little bit better, but still kind of had an angle down. But the second flight of the second plane did pretty good. And the second flight of the first plane did pretty bad again, and off into the trees. So then I just jumped into the water out of failure. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 50, which is literally insane. So I'm just going to place another pile and see how heavy I can get it. Right now it's at like 260 pounds. We placed for a long time, which was getting kind of exhausting. And be sure to comment any ideas you have for this rubber band ball now, because it's getting pretty heavy to do anything with. But we finished and we weighed it in at 287 pounds. The camera just doesn't do it justice. And then it fell on me and I exaggerated the fall, but then it actually hurt my foot. Like if you want me to keep going. So one day someone commented telling me I should make the plane even bigger, so I put two boards together and made the plane even bigger. Here's the new one. But it still had a problem. The tip was raising up, so we added some weight on the tip and it flew pretty good. Here it is flying into a tree. But I wanted to get it up on this roof to throw into wide open spaces, so I threw it up and then tried to figure out how to get up. And then I found this thing and used it as a ladder. I was up and here was the first throw. It was kind of bad, but the next flight was actually pretty good. But I still wanted a perfect flight, so I threw it again, and this one looked like it was going to be perfect until it raised up a little bit and then did a flip. And then I threw it again, and this looked like the best flight yet. It was just sailing until it hit a tree. I also tested this store-bought plane, which flew pretty good, and then gave this one last throw into the field. And I'd say this plane was a success. So one day after making Shrek entirely from Rubik's Cubes, I decided I wanted to frame it on the wall as art. But I had to put it in a different frame that would be better. And when I tried to lower it, I thought I ruined it, but I fixed it and then re-lowered it, put it in this, and then put it in the better frame. This was the frame that would hang on the wall, and it was a lot more secure. We poured resin all over it and did the best we could to smear it. It's probably not perfect. I've never done that before. Then we sanded the frame and painted the whole thing black to make the orange pop. And once that was all finished, we hung it on the wall. And here it is. It looks really good. When you walk in, this is what you see. So I'm now at rubber band ball part 51, and it is huge. I didn't get quite as many rubber bands this time, though, because there was a delay in shipping this week. But the ball's close to 300 pounds now, and I want to get it there. I placed this entire pile all the way until my phone died and stopped recording. But I still finished the ball and tried to weigh it, but the scale was being weird and wouldn't tell me any accurate numbers that made any sense. But I'm assuming it's close to 300 pounds. And the ball almost tried to roll into a car. Like if I should keep going. So it's now the 1-year anniversary of me starting the giant rubber band ball from an exploding watermelon. And ever since then, you guys have kept wanting me to add bands, so I have, all the way to now, which is part 52. I also bought a new scale to weigh the ball and a watermelon to crush at the end of this video with the rubber band ball. The ball currently weighs around 300 pounds, and this is like 25 pounds more of rubber bands we're adding. And the camera did keep cutting out at times due to the heat, but we kept on placing bands until the entire pile was gone. And we tried to weigh it, and we couldn't quite tell, but we think it was like 320, and we tried to pick it up, but we couldn't, so we had to roll it onto the watermelon and completely crushed it. But it was pretty good. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. One day I decided to see if I could make foam board into a boat that would float me down the creek. This is going to be my first part to a series where I test if random objects or materials will make a boat. I had the boat made and then I took it down to the creek, put it in the water and got in. And at first I didn't think it was going very well. Then I put a hole in it and had to move it to deeper water. So then I tested it again and completely ruined the boat. Look at it. So then I ran off sad, but comment any other boat ideas you want me to make. One day I took an air mattress and a bunch of cardboard and decided to make a cardboard air mattress type boat. And my goal was to make it to where you couldn't see any of the air mattress, so it just looked like a complete cardboard boat. I got it completely finished and it looked pretty cool. I took it out to the lake, then I jumped on and paddled my way out. And it was working. I was smooth sailing, then I got blown into the trees, but eventually pushed my way out and made my way around the dock thinking I was going to dock it, but ended up just going all the way around and then headed for these rocks, where I parked the boat for a little while, got off, and then kept going. And I went all the way around this little peninsula and went to shore. Let me know what else I should make. One day on part 53 of my giant rubber band ball series, I thought it was like any other rubber band ball video, placing a bunch of bands, but the clouds began to move in. After a while of placing rubber bands, it began to pour, and the rain just kept coming down harder and harder, so I got the beanbag to safety and then had to come back for the rubber band ball. Pushed that over 300-pound rubber band ball through the rain and into the garage, and then went back, making 2 trips to get all the rubber bands to place it in the garage. I shut the garage door, dried off the rubber band ball, and we got to work placing all the rest of the bands until we were eventually done. And the ball now should weigh like 347 pounds. Like if I should keep on going. So one day I ordered this new hamster ball that I thought would be better to run on water with than my old hamster ball, but it was kind of too short, but I dealt with it and made my way down to the lake to test it out. I got exhausted in the way, but I eventually made it there, and I normally put my hamster balls in creeks where there's a current, and I didn't realize you needed a current or else you just stay in the same spot, so I couldn't make it to the dock. But it was still pretty cool inside, and I tried to spin as much as possible to get some more movement, but after a long while of spinning and doing a bunch of flips, I was making no progress. So I just parked it into shore, got out, and then started skipping rocks sad. Let me know what else you should do. So one day someone commented and told me to make a boat out of plastic containers, so I made one out of these plastic bottles. I taped this seat on like this, and it was ready to float down the creek. I got on and I took off, and it was kind of hard to balance, and then I fell. But I got back up and continued on down the creek. The boat was kind of unstable, but I continued on as far as I could go. And when I made it to the big current, I was unbalanced and fell off. And then I lost track of the boat. It was floating down the creek, so I chased after it and hopped on. And then fell again. And also chased the oar down and finally headed back. Comment what else I should make a boat out of. So one day on Rubber Band Ball Part 54, I loaded up the giant rubber band ball with my brother and we drove it out to a warehouse where I would store it. I let the rubber band ball out and stopped it, and this is its new home. And then I dumped out a bunch more bands to begin working on it that night. And my friend and I got busy placing as many bands as possible as the night began to get darker. Now I'm in the process of getting another scale for this thing so I can get the exact weight perfectly. But it's massive and weighs around 370 pounds. I rolled it around, ran with it, and then rolled it back. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I got a bunch of bubble wrap and ramen noodles to make 2 separate boats for my Will It Boat series. I started with the bubble wrap and taped these 3 things together with a little bit of cardboard and went off on the creek. It was hard to balance on, but it floated at first. And I floated for a while until eventually water started to seep in and I had to get off and drag it to shore. Then I threw a rock and the next day got started on this ramen noodle boat. And the plan was to keep all the ramen in the boxes because I didn't want any of the noodles to get in the water. But I finished the boat and took it out to the creek and it floated pretty decently, but when I got on it, it started to sink. And it stayed afloat, but not with me. Maybe a squirrel. So this is Rubber Band Ball Part 55, and I dumped out another 25 pounds of rubber bands and started placing. And I actually have a new scale on the way. It can read all the way up to 1,000 pounds, and I think the ball will be 400 pounds after I'm done with this pile, but we'll have to test it when the scale gets here. I launched some of these bands, and then I compared the ball next to me, and it's completely massive, and there's no chance I can pick it up anymore. But it's way easier to stand on than ever before, and I can even, flip off it. This ball is just completely crazy, so if you want me to take it to 1,000 pounds. One day I decided to hang a giant hamster ball from the ceiling of the warehouse and make it a swing with me in it. And also make an actual swing. But first I wanted to play with the ball. I shot a hoop, then I bounced on it like this, and then ran and jumped and almost fell. Then did a flip and another flip. And remember, don't try anything you see in this video at home. But first I wanted to make the swing. I tied it to the ceiling and it worked pretty well. We had a decent swing. And next was the hamster ball that I also tied to the ceiling and then hung on to make sure it would hold my weight. I got in, let myself get aired up, and when we removed the beanbag, I was hitting the floor. So I had to tie the hamster ball up even higher and then get in again. And this time we removed the table and it worked. I was floating. So I got a push and I was swinging in the hamster ball. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it even worked. I spun around for quite a while, then got a bigger push and did this, and then decided to flip over and do this. So yeah, it was a pretty neat experience. And when I got out, I almost got stuck and then fell. So it's now Rubber Band Ball Part 56, and I bought a 1,000-pound scale to weigh it, and it weighs in at 396 pounds, but we gotta get it to 1,000. So my friend and I began placing a giant pile of bands for what felt like an eternity, and it got dark, and we kept on placing until we were completely out. And now we gotta weigh it, but first I wanted to test standing on it, so I ran on it like a barrel, then I did that, then stood on it, and then fell again. And here it is next to my head. Then I put it back on the scale and it weighed in at 422, then 428. So I don't know, but like if I should keep on adding bands. So one day I saw this video on TikTok of this guy jumping up and down in this pool and making all these waves and then collapsing like this. So I wanted to test it out and see if it would work with me. So I drug a pool out and filled it up. So then I took out a floaty, aired it all the way up, and got in and tried to repeat exactly what the guy did, jumping up and down, but I didn't see much progress. And there was no waves that made me crash, so then I just made this little whirlpool. After that, I tried again to do the splash thing, didn't work, so I swam around, did a little flip, and then got in the hamster ball. I flipped around in that and then tried the wave thing with it, and it wasn't working very well, so I just did another flip and then tried the wave thing again. And even again, but they all failed, so comment any other ideas you have. So one day someone commented on this video where I tried to replicate this video and said I had the timing all wrong. And they were right. This was my first attempt at it and it didn't do anything but make a bunch of waves. So I went to Walmart and got a rounder floaty and then tried again. And this time I tried to make the timing. That first try was better. Then the second try I did this and really tried to time it up. And it was my best run yet. And I actually got the wave to knock me down. And I also used a bunch of slow-mo in this video because I accidentally shot it in slow-mo. You can even see on this next run then a wave hitting the ring of the pool and then me falling. And then on this next one I did it really good and went like that. And you know I had to use that slow-mo. Comment any other ideas you want me to try. So I can't believe this ball's still going, but I'm at rubber band ball part 57, and I weigh it in at 422 pounds, but I'm going to keep on adding bands and make it even bigger. And a lot of people wonder why I wear gloves, and it's because if I don't, the bands will rub against my hand and create blisters. And I kept on placing bands until we were completely out, and look at it, it's huge. I can stand on it with ease now, but not pick it up. And it's tall enough to use as a platform to fall off of and flip. Then I tried to do like this rolling trick shot and just fell on my butt. But I did make this dunk off of it and this basket. And it was finally time to weigh it in at 447 pounds. It is massive, like if I should keep going. So one day I decided to build like a Nerf sniper tower up in this loft, make a cool little cardboard fort, because why not? And after I was done with that, I decided to build one on the ground level that actually looked even better. And I spent a lot of time on it, you know, made this cardboard fort, added a tower until it looked like that, and it was across from this one. Then it was time for war. We loaded our guns, and then we were ready to face off. I had the tower with the Fortnite sniper, and I kept shooting and shooting. But I didn't end up having the best luck. And even fell, but check out that cool merch. So it's another week and I'm on rubber band ball part 58 and I weighed it in at 446 pounds and then I had to keep on adding more. I dumped out a whole nother box of bands and got to work. And I kept on placing for about an eternity and ran through multiple pairs of gloves, but eventually we made it. This thing is now so big, the camera just doesn't justify how big it is. I was going to do a backflip, but ended up just doing that. And then I rolled it over the trampoline, fell off of it. Here's just a quick size comparison next to a ball pit ball. Then I put it on the scale, zeroed it out, and it weighed in at 472 pounds. So like this video if you want me to continue building it. So one day I decided to fly out and see the Logan Paul fight. And the cheapest ticket was Spirit Airlines. And the only thing really bad was the landing, which I didn't get good footage of. And before the fight, we chilled at the pool a little bit, went to the beach. I picked up some seaweed and I had a feeling Logan would win. So we headed to the fight. But we accidentally went to the Hard Rock Casino. So then we went to the stadium and these two guys fought first. And we just waited around until it was time for the actual fight. And when the fight started, they got booed for just standing still. But eventually they started kind of fighting. There was also a lot of hugs and a lot of dodges. But there was also some decent hits. And eventually it was over and I got in my Lambo. Kidding, I waited an hour and a half for an Uber. But then the next day we decided to kind of explore Miami. And I was going to get in this water but didn't because I saw a shark. Then I saw these two cats. And the next day we missed our flight so we had to stay another day. But you know, at least I made Logan Paul richer. So one day it came to my attention that I had to protect my giant 470-pound rubber band ball. So my first line of defense was this slingshot that I mounted and struggled with but eventually got. And then I threw a cardboard fort over it and wrote "not ball" so no one would think the ball was there. And later that night the defense would be tested. Someone snuck in through the window, fell on this beanbag, and then went into the warehouse hunting for the ball. And I thought my cardboard fort had worked. He walked up to it and he read it, but he still lifted it up. So then I had to resort to the slingshot and it made him fall, and then he tried to run away. But the second line of defense caught him. So then we just tossed him in the ball pit. Like if I should make it more secure. So one day, someone on my Instagram gave me the idea to build a trampoline out of my giant rubber bands that I use for my giant rubber band ball. And my first attempt was pretty bad. I couldn't figure out the tightness it needed, but eventually I got it. And then I took a big strand and wrapped them all the way around this thing like this. But it wasn't tight enough, so I made this X thing, and it was even more bouncy. And it was time to test it out. I made a cool hammock. I could step over it and throw shovels on it. And this tire and this rubber band ball. Just kidding. I tried to surf on it and then went to Walmart to get a watermelon, some soda, and some plates to throw on it. And the watermelon ended up being too heavy to bounce on it, so I moved on to the root beer, and it wouldn't explode, so I took it outside to do it. It launched pretty decently, and then I threw the plate, and it didn't break at first, but the second throw it shattered. So I threw it again, broke some bands, and then I just kind of went ham on some stuff. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 59, and it's almost at 500 pounds. So I got out another box of the 15-inch bands to see if I could get it there. And this was one of the most challenging rubber band ball videos because the bands were super tight and kept breaking, and it was also really hot. So we ended up having to take a day and come back to finish the pile. And while we were placing bands, we talked about how weird it was we were even making this. But it's also super cool. Just look at it here next to me. I measured it 30 inches high and like 98 inches around, and then rolled it. And it almost took some stuff out. Then I tried to make a basket off of it, but failed. Then it was time to see if it was 500 pounds, but it fell 3 pounds short. So then I just rolled it off, like if I should keep on adding bands. So the other day I made this giant rubber band trampoline, and people wanted me to make it even bigger and add a lot more bands. So I spent another hour or so adding even more bands until it looked like it was about to bend in. It could support my weight, but I wanted to test its bounciness. First with this can that eventually exploded, and next with this basketball that didn't bounce super high, so I got out this watermelon, and it just went right through it. So I got out this tire that completely broke the entire trampoline and bent the metal clear like in half almost, as you can see right here. So I just threw it in the pool. I'm now to rubber band ball part 60, and we started off trying to do backflips but failed, so then we weighted in at 496 pounds. And I used a lot of rubber bands to build this giant rubber band trampoline, but I had enough left over to get it over 500 pounds. We took a little break and then came back, and we finished off the entire pile, and it was done. The bands are now getting really tight in the ball, and look at its size comparison next to a tire. And then I tried to crush this watermelon but missed and crushed the pool instead. Tried to get it out, a lot of water came out, and it wouldn't crush the watermelon, so then I just took it inside, fell on it, and weighted it 515 pounds. So like if I should take it to 1,000 pounds. So one day I decided to take this hamster ball across the country into the ocean, but first in this pool, and then around the warehouse and out to the road, where I took off and made it to a trail. I kept going, found this hill, traveled up it, and made it to a golf course. Then I left the golf course and ran off to the ocean. And for some reason I thought I'd make it out to sea, but the waves just kept pushing me back and knocking me down. Look at that fall. And this wave really got me right here. And it pushed me all the way back to shore. So one day I visited Soup Timmy, a Rubik's Cube artist, because a little while back he inspired me to make my own Rubik's Cube art, and I ended up making Shrek. But Timmy's like a Rubik's Cube pro, and he can solve a Rubik's Cube in under 10 seconds. I scrambled one for him, and it's almost as if he slows down time, because he got it done in literally 7.6 seconds. Then he showed me he can even solve one with one hand in 30 seconds while playing with a ping pong ball. He even has the fastest time while solving a cube hula hoop. I then had him mix up a cube for me, and then I beat his record, and finished off his giant art wall. Guess I'm just a pro. No, but for real, this stuff is insane. He even showed me a magic trick where he instantly solved the cube, then showed me this giant cube and a fidget spinner. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 61, and the ball is over 500 pounds, but I guess everyone wants me to keep on going. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. My friend Brendan and I, we placed bands for a while, then left and came back the next day to place again, and this happened. A band broke and made him launch backwards. So I had to help him back up, and then we got back to placing. And I think this is Brendan's last time placing the rubber bands on the ball. But after way too long, we were done, and the ball is huge, and the bands are way too tight. Just look at me standing on it and then trying to bounce stuff on it. And I finally rolled it back on the scale and weighed it in at 541 pounds. So, like, if you want me to keep on going. So one day I got a bunch of helium to fill up this giant 6-foot water balloon and an air mattress. I filled up the balloon until I was out of helium, and then I let it go and grabbed it. Then I tried to see what it could lift, and not really anything. Then I punched it and kicked it and slammed it on the pool, which made it fly away. Like this. And the balloon just kept going off into the distance. And the next day it was time to try an air mattress. I filled it all the way up and it didn't do anything. So I put it in the pool, threw the shovel on it and hit it, and then sucked some helium up, and then so did my cameraman.
Part 61.
So one day I ordered this giant bubble dome thing because I saw it on the internet and thought it looked cool and had to buy it. I got it all the way aired up, and it was pretty cool looking. I opened it up, went inside, and it kind of felt like one big quarantine chamber. I was completely separated from the outside world. Here it is inside, and then I got bored and decided to put my giant rubber band ball in it. I put that in a beanbag and then chilled. So comment any cool ideas you have for this thing and I'll do them. So it's rubber band ball part 62, and I wanted to try something a little bit different this time. I took about 5 pounds of bands and looped them all together like this with the help of my friend, and we had this long strand that we tried to wrap around the ball, but it was kind of hard, so I rolled it, and that was still pretty hard, and the bands kept falling off, but eventually we got it. But we wanted to test if the same amount of bands was better just placing the normal way, and after we placed that pile, we realized it was. So we got out 3 more bags and placed the entire pile. And these videos always take so long to make, so leave a like if you actually want me to keep going and adding on to this ball. It's just huge now. Just look at it again next to a basketball. And then we put it on the scale and weighed it in at 555 pounds. So again, like if I should keep going. So one day someone commented telling me to fill this dome thing up with water, so I was going to do it. My plan was to fill this section up first and then get in the other section, zip it up, and let it fill all the way until I was releasing it. But it started to leak through, which was ruining my plan. So I had to release early and let all the water out, and this is what it looked like. all the water did kind of rush in, and it made this cool little pool in the dome. It wasn't as much water as I wanted, but I still made the most of it and then left. Let me know what else I should do. So I'm now at rubber band ball part 63, and we built this Lego tower to knock it over with the rubber band ball. It completely knocked it over, and then I weighed the ball in at 555 pounds, and then we got busy placing more bands to make it even heavier. I had a whole box dumped out, and my friend Brendan helped me place all these bands. And to make it go faster, we tried to do 2 and 3 bands at a time. And these are like the max custom length bands I can find, so I don't know what I'm gonna do after this, but we were done. And the ball is now at an unreal level of massiveness. It about crushed this fort, then almost hit Brendan, and we weighed it in at 580 pounds. So like if you want me to keep on going. So one day someone commented on my video with this giant dome thing and told me to put ball pit balls in it, so I put the whole ball pit in it. And it took a pretty long time having to air it up and move all the balls in, and then I had to move them from this thing to this thing until eventually they were all in the one big circle. And it looked really cool. I fell in it, then looked around, and then ran around, and then fell again, threw some balls at the camera, tried to run, and it wasn't that deep because it was so big, but let me know what else I should do with this thing. So one day I decided to fill my giant hamster ball up with ball pit balls, and I've done this before, but this time I'm going to do it with a lot more balls. I took all the balls from this dome, got in the ball, and here it was, all filled up. It was crazy. I rolled around in it, then rolled it outside, fell down, and here was the view. Then my friend Brendan tried to throw stuff at me and roll me over. Then I decided to test if I could ride this electric scooter in, and I got in with it, but I couldn't make enough momentum for the scooter to go. So I just got in with this hoverboard instead, rolled around, did a lot of spinning stuff, and then I fell again, and went outside. Let me know what else I should try. So one day someone commented telling me to take my giant 580-pound rubber band ball back to the pawn shop like old days, but it's too big, so I'm going to take all this random stuff in this little rubber band ball bag.
What happened to it? Did you put it in water?
And I told him it was a different ball, then showed him a picture of the big one.
Gosh, how big is that now?
I said 580, and then he said I should just put it on eBay. And then I moved on and asked him what he'd give me for this thing.
About $50 in rubber bands, $30.
And I couldn't sell it for that, so I had to move on to this ball.
Super high.
Wow, yeah, that's cool. Did you get this at like Chuck E. Cheese?
And then I told him the price.
$16. I paid 8 for it, so I wanted to double my money.
Oh,
Yeah, we didn't end up making a deal on the ball either, so I moved on to this tiny rubber band gun. And I threw him a high ball number.
$200.
He gave me a weird look, so then I just moved on to the last item.
Magic, basically.
I said it was super rare water repellent spray, and I wanted a lot of money for it, but he didn't budge, so then he tried to sell me some stuff, including these cool shades. This is rubber band ball part 64, and it can barely fit through a doorway, and here it is next to a tire. I rolled it to the other end of the warehouse, and then decided to crush a bunch of poppers with it. Here it goes. And after that, I rolled it onto the scale, breaking this little wood ramp and weighing it in at 585 pounds. And it was now time to get the ball over 600 pounds, so I dumped out a bunch more bands, and then look at this other angle. The ball is huge, and the camera just doesn't do it justice how big it is. And my friend helped me place bands for so long, until eventually the pile was out. And the ball was done. I rolled it over the beanbag and then used it as like a giant exercise ball that's just huge and weighs like 600 pounds. I crushed this ball pit ball and then pushed it with the hoverboard onto the scale and weighed it at 605 pounds. So like if I should keep on going. One day I ordered a bunch of giant Legos to build a brick wall and run into it. So we built the brick wall, and then I got on the scooter and ran into it and completely nailed my nose and made it bleed a little bit. Yeah, it really hurt. So then we put it back together and took the rubber band ball to it. And after that, I ordered even more Legos because I was like, I need to make the wall even bigger. And then I tried to jump over it, which was kind of a fail. So let me know what else I should do or if I should buy more. So one day I got another super strong magnet to go magnet fishing with. First I wanted to test it, picking up this chair first, then this helium tank, and it did a pretty good job, so I was ready to go fishing after I threw this frisbee thing. I first took it out to this pond to test it and threw it out, pulled in, and for a while I was getting a lot of nothing. And after a long while, eventually on a really big throw, I hooked something and pulled up this thing. Kind of bizarre. Then I dropped it and accidentally pushed it out further with my magnet, but I got it. And then the next day we went to a different pond to test. I dragged the magnet along and pulled up this. Yeah. And then I threw it back and pulled up whatever this is. It was like a coin and a really black piece of metal. And after that I felt something really hook on, but I couldn't get it. So one day I decided to test some water repellent spray on some stuff, including my giant rubber band ball, which I guess is already kind of water repellent, and these shoes to walk on water, this shirt, this glove, this lampshade, and this towel, these glasses, and my name. Then I came back after 24 hours to test it. The glove didn't work, and the lampshade, the water bounced right off the side that was sprayed, and not the side that wasn't. And then the shirt kind of worked. If you get really up close, you can see the water beating off of some of it. Right there. Then these glasses that didn't really do much, and this towel that actually kind of worked way better on the side that was sprayed than the non. And it made the water just sit on the surface of the rubber band ball and just run off. Then I looked at the wet concrete and my name was really there, but then I tested the shoes and it didn't work. So I'm now all the way to part 65 of my giant rubber band ball, and here's a little rubber band ball being thrown on it, and then me pushing it to the scale to weigh it in at 607 pounds. Then we threw down another pile to keep on placing and make it even bigger, and people ask me all the time what my goal is for this ball, and I don't even know. I'm just going to try to get it as big as possible. It always takes way longer than it looks to place all these bands, but eventually we got it done. I tried to push it with my hoverboard, and kind of worked. Then we put it back on the scale, and it was like 30 pounds off, so it actually weighs like 634 pounds. So, like, if you want me to keep on going. So one day I wanted to prank my friend by surprising him with a really bad new car. So I looked on Facebook Marketplace for the cheapest cars I could find that still ran, until eventually I found this one. The car had some damage and smelled pretty bad inside, but it still ran. So we started spray painting it to make it look even worse. I wrote my name, this line, and I just wanted to make the car look as funny as possible. My friend and I added these racing stripes, and then I put a car tree in it to make it smell good. And it was finished. It looked really good, and it was ready to give to him. I invited him to the warehouse the next day and told him I had a surprise. And showed him.
What is this? It's your new car, bro. I know you've been needing a car. Well, my car's in the shop. What in the heck? Does it even run? Thanks, then. Yeah, I know you've been needing a car.
He looked really confused and said,
What's really going on here, though? The AC kind of works.
I told him it was his car and let him take it for a test drive. And then...
This isn't actually like my car, is it?
What, bro? Do you not like it?
And he didn't really act like he wanted the car, so my friend and I kind of got upset. After that, he spray painted it some more. Then we did some joyriding, got on the roof, and hit the rubber band ball. So I'm in a rubber band ball part 66, and the ball is huge. Look at me behind it. You can't even see me. And I put it on the scale, and it weighs 630 pounds, but we're going to get it even bigger and keep on adding bands. And my friend Brennan and I began placing bands for a very long time. And a lot of people say it looks like an egg now and not a ball, but it's very hard to keep it round because it's so big. And we try our best. And after we finished with the pile, I messed around with it, tried to throw balls on it, and then dunked with it. And I compared it next to this tiny rubber band ball and my head, then fell off of it, and took it back on the scale to weigh it in at 655 pounds. So, like if I should keep on going. So one day while scootering, I dropped my laptop and then dropped it again on accident, totally on accident. And I had to fix it, so I looked up on the internet and got some toothpaste and some lemons to repair the crack. I've dumped the toothpaste out, started brushing it really hard, and I brushed it for quite a while and realized it wasn't going to do anything. Yeah, so then I tried to fix this plate and bam, it was bigger and better, and then I broke it. But then I tried the lemon juice on the laptop, and that didn't really work either. So then I just got sad. So one day I decided to fix some of the damage on this car with life hacks I saw on the internet, starting with toothpaste to fix these scratches, which didn't end up working. So then we just moved on to the wheels using this black tire shine, and then tried to repair this crack on the windshield, and the shaving cream or toothpaste didn't really work. So then I just washed the entire car and really tried to actually detail it. I used this Dollar General leather cleaner on the cloth seats, and it looked really great. And then vacuumed the entire thing and used this plunger to get the dents out, but it actually got this dent out of the roof. So one day I bought a watermelon because a lot of people want to know how I made this giant 600-pound rubber band ball, and it all started with a watermelon and a lot of rubber bands. And I'm going to do it all again with this watermelon so you guys can see. I put a bunch of rubber bands on the watermelon until eventually this happens. Bam, and all the rubber bands fly together and create a little ball. And I was kind of covered in watermelon, but I had this little ball, so I was happy. We threw the watermelon at the car, and then we were ready to make this ball neat. And I spent a little while double knotting a bunch of bands around this ball until it was pretty round and neat, and bounced pretty good. And I even crushed it with the giant rubber band ball, so let me know what else I should do. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 67, and we actually made a couple more tiny rubber band balls. Here they are on a mini trampoline, and the big one was too big for it, so we just put it on the scale and weighed it in at 655 pounds. And now it's time to make it bigger. I dumped out a whole nother pile. Then my friend and I got to placing bands for a really long time. And the bigger this ball gets, the harder it is for it to look bigger. So we got to add a lot of bands every time. And we finished up the pile, and then I wanted to test if it would go through a doorway, and it wouldn't. It's too big now. And I failed trying to get it back on the scale, so we had to both push it on the scale and weigh it in at 679 pounds. So, like, if you want me to keep on going. So one day I went to one of those warehouses that has overstocked Amazon pallets you can buy, and I bought this one for $500 to see what was in it, like a cool mystery box. I opened it up at my warehouse, and there was these pillows, a sleeping bag, a fan, a dog bed, and this automatic dog food feeder. And this thing that we didn't know what it was, but it actually ended up being a sword. And at this point, I was already happy with my purchase. Next was the camping stuff, a Christmas tree, a trash can, a nice microwave, a not so nice microwave, a bottle of water, a Serta rolly chair, this thing, and this outdoor bench. And we added everything up to be worth over $1,000. Then we tested out the sword and first used the wrong side, but then destroyed a can. And comment down below if I should try to sell all this stuff or just use it. So one day it was rubber band ball part 68, and the rubber band ball is now almost 700 pounds. But today we're going to get it there. And somebody in the last video commented to get colored rubber bands, so I got these black rubber bands so you can see them placed on the ball. And the cool thing about two different colors is you can see them all going onto the ball. And it took us quite a while, but eventually we got it done. And the ball looks really cool now. It looks kind of three-dimensional. Look at it. The black bands are more sleek than the other ones. And the ball is so massive. Look at it in comparison to my head. Then I zeroed out the scale and put it back on, and it weighed 706 pounds. So, like, if I should keep on adding bands. So one day I bought like 1,000,000 Orbeez to dump in this inflatable pool and get in. Because I've always seen people do this kind of stuff and always wanted to try it. So here it goes. I dumped all the Orbeez out into this pool, mixed it up, and here's an hour time lapse of it growing. And this is what they looked like at the end of the hour. Yeah, they still needed to get bigger, so I came back the next day and it was completely full. Look at it. I got in the pool and the Orbeez got huge. Look at this one. Then I decided to lay down in it, move around. I moved my legs around like this, made a bunch of waves, splashed my face with Orbeez, and jumped in them. Then I dropped this rubber band ball in them and it made a pretty big splash. Here's the slow-mo and here's another drop. Like if I should fill this pool up to the top. So one day after filling a pool up with like 1,000,000 Orbeez, people kept telling me to add more, so I'm adding double. Here are all the Orbeez sitting in the water, and then the next day it looked like this. It was crazy. I fell in it, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. It was like just a really weird pool. Here I am buried in it, then jumping in it, then falling in it, then doing a flip into it, dropping this rubber band ball. Here it is again, and then moving a bunch of the Orbeez into this hamster ball to try it in that. And the problem was it was just too heavy and really hard to move. So one day I ordered jumbo Orbeez to see if they were that much bigger than regular Orbeez. I filled it up in this container full of water, and I didn't know how much water to add, so I just added this much, and 24 hours later, it all looked like this. They were really big. Here's a size comparison to regular Orbeez. They looked like little bouncy balls, so then I tried to bounce them, and then this one broke. So then I took this one and bounced it and broke it like this. But they look so cool, I decided to taste one. Don't try them. Then we found this clear one that turned me upside down, and this one was even more round. So let me know what else I should do with these. So I'm now to part 69 of my giant rubber band ball, and it's now over 700 pounds, but we're going to get it even bigger. I dumped out 25 pounds of bands to place on the ball, and I started placing with the help of my friend Brendan. And we actually placed 3 bands at once the whole time to make it go by a lot quicker. Until eventually we were done. I stood on it, and then tried to walk on it, and tried to walk again. It was actually kind of successful. Then I pushed it over here, dropped this ball on it, jumped on it, and then we tried to figure out how to get on the scale, and weighed it in at 727 pounds. So, like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day someone commented saying I should throw these giant Orbeez at cars in the street. And I'm going to do that, but first I wanted to test some other stuff out. Throwing it against the wall, dropping one, throwing one at my friend, tossing one in this pool of Orbeez and comparing them, lighting them on fire, which didn't do much. So then I tried putting them in the microwave, which didn't do much until we put it in for over 30 seconds and they all started popping. And were really hot to touch. Then I tried crushing them with this ball, look at the slow-mo, and then it was time to throw them at this car, which I think they got mad. So I just ran. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 70. It knocked over all these crates. Then I zeroed out the scale and weighed it in at 730 pounds, and it was time to add a bunch more bands. So my friend Brendan and I got busy placing this entire pile, which took so long, and we ended up taking a break and coming back the next day to finish it. But eventually it was done, and the ball is now even bigger. Look at it next to my head, me jumping on it, then me rolling it to Brendan, him rolling it back even faster, then dunking on it, and we weighed it back in at 755 pounds. So like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I filled an even bigger pool up with Orbeez. I filled the other one up with about 2,000,000 Orbeez, and I'm going to fill this one up with millions more. And we were going to reuse the old Orbeez in this pool too, but they kind of smelled bad, so we just went with all new, and it looked like this. It was pretty insane looking and really colorful. Just millions and millions of colorful little orbs. I got in it and then splashed around, then jumped in and tried to swim across, then jumped off this mini trampoline, and I even put this inflatable zebra in there and tried to make it look like I was in a weird rap video, and fell in, like if I should add even more Orbeez. So one day I filled this pool up with Orbeez in my last video, and then people wanted me to add more. And so I did. I bought like a few million more, added a bunch more water, then came back the next day, and it looked like this. And the Orbeez were a lot less watered down this time. It was just solid Orbeez for days. And when I would fall in it, I basically just got stuck, and then I tried to swim like this. Then threw some Orbeez at the camera, and tried to get on this floaty, and then skateboarded this little rubber band ball into the pool. Then I tossed it way up in the air to see what the splash would look like, and here's the slow-mo. Yeah, pretty cool. Like if I should fill this car with Orbeez. So one day someone commented on my video with a pool of millions of Orbeez that I should fill this car up with Orbeez, so that's what I'm going to do. So with the help of my friend Brennan, we transferred a bunch of the Orbeez into this car. I got in, and this is what it looked like. It was really cool. The Orbeez felt like a seat cushion. Look at them flying when I was driving. It was crazy. My legs were completely underwater on Orbeez, and they were just flying everywhere. I kept on driving all around, and then I decided to open up one of the doors to see what it looked like, and it was really cool looking. And then it slammed on me, and they flew at me. I let some out here, and then ran them over, and then drove off. So it's now rubber band ball part 71, and this ball is insanely massive at 750 pounds, but we're going to make it even bigger. And this time, half the bands are these half-inch bands that I've never tested before, so we'll see how they go. And the bands were just really tight, so we ended up moving the ball to see if it would make it better, and it did, because none of the bands had been placed on that side that much. And it also helped make the ball more even. But eventually, after a long time, we were done. The ball is huge. Here I am trying to stand on it and walk on it, and almost fall. I dropped some Orbeez on it, threw a water balloon at it, and crushed a water balloon, and then weighed it in at 777 pounds. So like this video if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day someone commented saying I should freeze the jumbo Orbeez, so that's what I'm going to do. I put them in the freezer, and the next day they looked like this. They were all stuck together, and it wasn't as cool as I thought it was going to be. I tried putting hot water on it, and it didn't really fix it. But I ordered some more jumbo Orbeez to test another comment, which was pouring lighter fluid in to see if it would soak them and light them on fire. But when I came back the next day, it didn't soak up any of the lighter fluid. I was disappointed, but I had one more idea, pouring all these little Orbeez onto this trampoline and jumping, which it looked really cool. Then I did a flip. So one day someone commented that I should make a second rubber band ball, and I already have 3. This one, and my giant one. This one's huge. I can sit on it, but not sit on the other ones because they weigh 0.6 pounds and 15 pounds. Well, the giant one is 777 pounds, but I'm still waiting on a shipment of bands, so I'm going to add on to the other one. I just grabbed a bunch of random bands at Walmart, then went back to the warehouse, threw the ball on the table, dumped out a bunch of bands, and got to placing. I started with all the colored bands to make it look really cool, and it did. It ended up looking like this. It was cool. Then I moved on to these ones to make it really tight and compact. And after a while, I was done. Here it is. Rolled it off the table and compared it next to the giant ball, then my head, and then threw it as high as I could. And it's pretty bouncy and weighs 17 pounds. Like if I should keep doing this ball too. So one day I bought a ton of cardboard sheets at Walmart to build the biggest cardboard boat I could make while still functioning. And I used to make cardboard boats all the time, but I hadn't made one in a while, and I felt like making a huge one. I pieced the boat together, taped it up completely, taped all the flaps down, flipped it over, taped this, and then put a bunch of sheets in the bottom. And after that was taped completely, we flipped it back over and then added another sheet, taped that down fully, and then I decided to add some Flex Seal. I did this to help waterproof the boat, and then I sprayed this on there. But I ended up coming back the next day and adding another coat anyway because it felt flimsy still. After that was done drying, it was time to test it out at the creek. I put it in the water, got in, and laid down. That was the only way I could be stable. The current wasn't very strong, so I tried to row without much luck, and then I saw a leak, and the boat started to collapse in. I kept on pushing, trying to stay afloat, but with no luck, we eventually went down, and I was never seen again. Not really, but I was pretty sad. So it's rubber band ball part 72, and the ball's a little messed up from a video that's not out yet, but it still weighs 775 pounds, so we're going to keep on adding bands. And this time I got these special blue bands. And we began fixing up the ball and making it look cooler with these blue bands. And we kept on rotating it, that way the bands would be spread more evenly, and it would be easier to place the bands. And after a very long time, we were done. I about crashed into the wall, then jumped on it, and dropped my phone. Now, this ball is completely insane. Here's next to the little ball next to me, and then I struggled to put it on the scale. But got it and weighed it at over 800 pounds, like if I should keep on going. So it's rubber band ball part 73, and I about knocked over a fan with it and struggled to make it over to the scale, but weighed it in at 800 pounds. But we're going to add even more bands. And the ball still looks kind of broken, so hopefully after we place all these bands, it looks a lot neater. And the ball is finally getting close to 1,000 pounds, which is what the scale maxes out at. And we kept turning the ball to make it as round as possible. And after a long while of placing bands, we were finished. And the ball does look a lot neater. I jumped on it like this. Then it accidentally moved the couch when I was trying to make it over to the scale. Brendan tried pushing it on, but failed alone. So we both had to push it, and it weighed 829 pounds. I then pushed it off and took it outside to show the cows. Yeah, they thought it was pretty cool. Like if I should keep on going. So it's rubber band ball part 74, and the ball won't fit through a doorway. It's over 800 pounds, and it's looking kind of rough. But we're on our way to 1,000 pounds, and we're going to get it there. We dumped out a bunch more bands, and we've been using this same band for a while. They still work on the ball, but we almost need bigger bands. We kept on placing until it was done. And it's actually getting hard to jump on because it's so tall. I pulled a stray band onto it, and then crushed this box, and then pulled it to the scale. And at first, the scale was acting broken, but eventually it weighed in at 842 pounds. So, like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day it was rubber band ball part 75 and I rolled it across the warehouse and then put it on the scale and it weighed 842 pounds. We dumped out a whole bunch more rubber bands and got to placing. The ball is really heavy and hard to move around, so we do our best to not place the bands in the same spot and try to keep it as round as possible. We finished the pile and the camera just doesn't do the ball justice. I moved it to the distance to kind of get an idea of how big it is, and then I slammed into the ball, dunked on it, totally done. And then tried to move it with the hoverboard but failed, so I spun around and put it on the scale, but we kind of broke it and it wouldn't read. But it's probably 870. So it's rubber band ball part 76, and I tried to prove it weighs 870 pounds, but the scale's been broken, probably from the rubber band ball, but we're just going to keep adding bands anyway. We dumped out a huge pile of rubber bands and got to placing. And this really is a lot more work than it looks like, band after band for so long. We flipped it to make it cover the blue side, and then we were done. It looks really good, and it's probably within 5 pounds of 900 pounds. Here I am laying next to it, and then jumping on it and trying to run on it. I pushed the ball, tried to get a run, and then fell, and then did it again. Kind of got one. Yeah, pretty cool. Like if I should keep going to 1,000. So one day I decided to buy 2 giant pumpkins, one 500 pounds and the other 250 pounds. We took them on a trailer to the warehouse and then scooted them off into the beanbag and then onto the floor. This one was the hardest, weighing 500 pounds. But we got them all off, and here they are compared to my 800-pound rubber band ball. We weighed this one to be sure, and it was 240. But this one was too heavy to weigh. We flipped up the 300-pound pumpkin and dumped out a bunch of giant rubber bands to try to place them all around it. We were going to see if we could cut it clean in half. And like 30 seconds after I got up, it started to buckle in and did this. I lifted up the top, and there was a wad of giant messy rubber bands and a vine. It looked really cool inside, and then I decided to dump out a bunch of little rubber bands to place around this one and tighten it up so I can make a cool ball, but it didn't really bounce very well. Let me know what I should do to the other pumpkin. So it's giant rubber band ball part 77, and I saw these little rubber band balls at the store, so I had to buy them all and compare them to my giant 895-pound rubber band ball. Mine was a lot bigger. I opened one up like this and compared it, and yeah, mine was way bigger. We're gonna make it even bigger, and I'm hoping in the next month I can get this ball all the way to 1,000 pounds. And we noticed the ball was kind of egg-shaped, and it made it hard to place bands, so we moved it and put wedges down so the ball wouldn't move and placed it like this, and it helped a lot. It really helped round out the ball and make it look a lot better. We placed the final band and we were done. And the scale still broke, but the ball should be about 920 pounds. One day I decided to take this 500-pound pumpkin and carve it, make a jack-o'-lantern, and then do a giant elephant toothpaste experiment in it. And I just started off with a regular pumpkin carving kit, which wasn't going very well, so I started using a saw, got the top off, and it was super thick. It was insane. And we began hollowing it out using a bunch of different methods, the spoon, a shovel, the crowbar, and it all only took about 20 minutes until it was looking pretty good. And the pumpkin was ready to carve. I drew a pretty basic-looking jack-o'-lantern face and began cutting. It actually was going pretty smoothly with the knife that came in the kit. I was shocked. I cut out the nose, the eyes, and the mouth, which was the hardest part, until it was done. It looked really good, and it was time for the experiment. I poured the stuff in a bucket inside the pumpkin, and then it was ready to go. And it went really fast and shut out the eyes and everything. And for not even measuring anything, it turned out pretty good. It looked really cool. I can't believe elephants brush their teeth with this stuff. So it's giant rubber band ball part 77, and the scale doesn't really work anymore, but it's 920 pounds. We're so close to 1,000 pounds, and we're going to get it there soon. This pile weighs 25 pounds, and we placed the entire thing, which took quite a while, but eventually we were done, and I jumped on it, then sat on it, then laid next to it, then accidentally rolled it into the bang and drank it anyway, like if I should keep on going. It's now rubber band ball part 78, and the ball is so close to 1,000 pounds. The scales broke, but the ball should be about 945 pounds, and we're placing a bunch more bands. We eventually rolled the ball to a higher point, that way it would be easier to get the bands around the ball. We did this for a while until eventually we were done. This band flew in the sky. The ball should be about 970 pounds, and it's huge. My friend Brendan did this, then I fell off it onto a beanbag, and like if I should keep on going. So one day I went to this place that gets puppies from pet stores that have something wrong with them, and I decided to buy this puppy. She had a little hop, and we took her to PetSmart to pick out a bunch of toys. We got this, and she was looking pretty happy. Got a collar, then she itched like this, and that was pretty funny. And eventually, after about a week, her hop became more of a run, and she was quick, running all over the place. And she seemed overall pretty happy, and she even became pretty good friends with our other dog, Gundy, and we ended up naming her Remy. Go follow her. So I'm now at a rubber band ball part 80, and I'm going to add all these rubber bands to my 970-pound ball. And after this video, the ball should be within inches of 1,000 pounds. And we don't know for sure the weight because my current scale is broken, but I have a new one that weighs up to 5,000 pounds on the way. Eventually, we finished the pile, and it looked like this. It's insane. I crushed a can, then drank the rest of it, and then here's it next to my head, and here's the broken scale, like if we should keep on going.
So one day I decided to build a giant slingshot out of giant rubber bands that I use for my giant rubber band ball. We started by pouring concrete, mixing it up because we wanted to make it super sturdy and movable. We did this with 2 buckets, then came back the next day, and they were pretty heavy. We put rubber bands around them, but they fell, so we added supports, then began putting a lot more bands, and it didn't work. So then I tried the slingshot I had, and that didn't really work either. And I gave up for a while, but I remembered I could just make it wider, and then it worked perfectly. Look at this baseball launching. So then I had the idea to set up a target and try to hit it. We had this glass thing here, and I was trying to hit it several times. I missed, went right past it again, and then finally dinked it. But it didn't even do anything. Then I just chucked the ball at it, and it wouldn't break, so I hit it with a bat, then hit the baseball, and launched a pineapple. But it didn't go very far, so I threw it. And got out tape and a bunch of crates to try to knock it down. Fell like this, then I threw a bat and a rubber band ball and a shovel.
Now rubber band ball part 81, and I bought this new scale that weighs up to 5,000 pounds. It weighed the ball in at 990 pounds, and today we're going to get it over 1,000 pounds. I also wanted to try some different strategies, these big mover bands and looping these 12-inch bands. I thought looping these 12-inch bands sounded the easiest because you could just loop them together and then wrap them around. We dumped out a bunch of bands like this and then started looping. We looped for a while and decided to go ahead and place one on, and it looked pretty good, so we kept on going until we had the entire pile finished. We ended up with these 2 giant links of bands. We wrapped one all the way around it, which made me kind of dizzy, and then wrapped the other one until we were done. And the ball looked pretty good. We weighed it in over 1,000 pounds, finally. I was pretty excited. So now we just got to get to the new world record, like if I should keep going. So one day I found my old kangaroo shoes I hadn't seen in forever. They're supposed to make you run and jump super high. I put them on and struggled. I remember how hard they were to use. I walked for a little bit, then tried jumping, and I was struggling, so I put my hood on for safety. I then went over to the hoop, picked up a basketball, and shot it. It went right in. I guess it makes you better. But then I couldn't pick it up, so I went over to the ball and tried to see if I could really run on these. Here I am running, then dunking, and then running out in the wild, then trying to race my dog. She kind of took the lead. Then I started walking because I kind of lost my balance, but they're pretty cool. So one day I bought a 30-foot balloon to try to pop it. I covered my head, and then I got white stuff in my nose, and then tried to air it up. It was really cool, and it made like these waves. It aired up for a little while until it was completely full. I untied it and then wrapped some rubber bands around it, and look at it. I hit it, did some ripples, and then here's it next to the rubber band ball. I shot it with a Nerf gun, then shot a giant rubber band at it, punched it, let it run, hit it some more, and it wouldn't pop, so I threw a basketball at it, then flex sealed so one day on it, bam. Then got out a plunger and tossed it at it, and it went pop. Like if I should buy another one. So it's giant rubber band ball part 82, and I got a sample amount of these giant green rubber bands to test them out. They work really well, but for now I only have these rubber bands. The ball's just over 1,000 pounds, and these bands barely work anymore. They're way too tight. We had to prop the ball up as tall as possible to even fit the bands, but after a long time we were done with the entire pile. It's a little wonky, but here it is. Then here's me jumping on it, rolling around a little bit, and jumping off. And it was time to weigh it in. We got it on the scale, and it was going back and forth between 1,020 and 1,040, like if I should keep on going. One day I had Purple send me a mattress to test their famous raw egg test. They basically slam a bunch of eggs on the mattress, and no matter what, it won't break the egg. Inside the mattress was these mini mattresses that were super stretchy, because that's what they're made of. Then this mask, I opened up the mattress, unrolled it, cut open the plastic, and it aired up. It was pretty comfy. I was actually super impressed by the comfort. My dog even liked it. I had all these eggs to put it to the test. I first crushed one with the mini mattresses like that, and then I threw one at the mattress, tried to push on it, fall on it, and it just wouldn't break. So I tried on the couch as well, and it still wouldn't break. And even the rubber band ball wouldn't crush it. So then I tested the eggs to make sure they were still good. Yeah, they break. So I just chucked them as hard as I could, both at the mattress and the couch. They bounced off, and then I tried the 3-egg drop test thing. I fell flat on my back eventually, like that, and the eggs were perfectly fine, even after I fell like this. So I resorted to the 1,000-pound rubber band ball, which actually crushed them. And I was like, I'm going to take this cover off and see what's inside the mattress now. And it was actually pretty cool. I ripped this thing open, which I don't think you're supposed to do, but it felt really cool. Look at it. And it even holds the egg like this. Pretty cool mattress. So one day, about a year ago, I got this water gun that could shoot really powerful. And here's me getting shot in the back with it. It kind of hurt, but they came out with a new one. And since I broke my other one with boiling water, I decided to try it out. It's basically the same gun with a different design. Here's me acting like I was going to shoot Alex and letting him shoot me, then shooting the camera, the basketball hoop, then this can that got completely destroyed. Then I decided to fill it up and shoot my friend Brennan on full blast. I waited for him behind the bush, and eventually he came. It was fully charged up, and it hit all the way to him. Then he ran. I chased him down a little bit, then shot him again. He shot me, and then I shot a bunch. So one day someone commented that they didn't think the giant balloon I bought was 30 feet. And yeah, I might not have had it aired up all the way, so we're going to try in this video. I got a completely new balloon, aired it up inside, but I thought it was too big to try and get to full height inside, so I tried to take it outside with a rope and the air pump attached to it. But the problem was it was way too windy, and the balloon felt like it was being vacuumed from the sky all the way up until eventually it popped. And bam, there went one really expensive balloon.